Hey guys, you're watching Economista 101 with Imran. Let's have a look at the AQA A-level Economics Exam paper. So there are 3 exam papers for the AQA A-level Economics Exam that you guys will have to sit at the end of the year. Now let's have a look first and foremost at paper 1 and paper 2, and then we'll take on paper 3. So paper 1 is going to be based on microeconomics, and paper 2 is going to be based on macroeconomics. So very similar to the AS exam papers, paper 1 micro, paper 2 macro. Now, the exam is going to be 2 hours long for each paper. For micro and macro, the exam will be 2 hours in length each. Secondly, the marks will be up to 80 marks. So there will be 80 marks for each paper, right? Now, the exam paper for micro and macroeconomics, so paper 1 and paper 2, are going to be designed and structured in the same way, in the same method when it comes to like marks and the sections. Now, there will be 2 sections, section A and section B, on each paper. When it comes to section A, 40 marks is allocated. When it comes to section B, the remaining 40 marks are allocated. So the paper has like 2 halves, right? So the first half of the paper is going to be 40 marks and the second half of the paper is going to be 40 marks. So there's a 50% weighting on each side. So it's equal weighting there. When it comes to section A, you do have to select a context that you feel and are confident to answer. So tip number 1, guys, go for that context that you believe that you can significantly answer well in this first section. And you will actually get 2 contexts to choose from. So you will get context 1 or context 2, but you select, you decide. So it's not like, oh, you have to do this context. No, it's not like that. You select, it's an option for you. And my best piece of advice I can give you is choose the context that you feel you can confidently answer, but you can potentially gain most of the marks in. And on that note, guys, you will actually have 4 types of questions there. You will have a 25 marker, a 9 marker, 4 and 2. And the reason I start with the 25 marker is because when you're selecting the context, look at the 25 marker very carefully and see how you can answer that one, and potentially can you get most of the marks in that particular question, right? When you choose the context that you're going to choose. So context 1 or context 2, look at the 25 marker. That's my best piece of advice I can give you, is go for that 25 marker where you can potentially maximize your answers, and obviously have a look at the other questions and see if you can potentially maximize your marks in that particular context. If you can't, look at the next one, maybe you can do it on that one, and yeah, make your decision on that strategically. You will also get 3 extracts, by the way. So the extracts will be A, B and C for the first context. The second context will be D, E and F, but you will be given 3 extracts, so like mini case studies that you will have to read. And then when it comes to the questions, guys, so you will have 4 questions to answer in that section A. The questions are as follows. So the first question is going to be a 2-mark calculation question, and that will be based on one of the extracts, and usually it's going to be the first extract. So it may be the extract A, for instance. So the 2-mark calculation is going to be based on contextual data and information from the extract. The second question is a 4-mark data explanation question, and again they will ask you about one of the extracts. So you will have to read the extract, read the data. Usually it's like in statistical graphs or like a figure with data, with numeric data, and you have to interpret that, but you have to explain that question as well. So you use the data to explain for that 4-marker. The third question is a really interesting question, I find. It's a 9-mark diagram explanation question, and that it's a little bit different to the 10-mark in the AS exam. Here, you must do a diagram that is relevant to the question, plus you must explain it as well according to what the question is asking you to do. So that's the 9-marker. A diagram is compulsory, and if you don't do a diagram, then you're going to be losing some marks there as well. So that's the 9-mark diagram. And then you've got the last and final crucial question, the 25 marker. As we all know, right? 25 markers, very interesting questions where you have to develop an argument, an economic argument, for versus against argument. And that's where the last question comes in for section A. So 2, 4, 9, 25. Altogether, that's 40 marks on section A. Now, the remaining marks are on section B. And again, it's 40 marks, as we said earlier. Now, this section is a really interesting area of how it's been developed from AQA, whereby you have to choose an essay. And the essay, there are 3 different essays, and there are 2 questions that you have to answer. So there will be a 15 mark and 25 marker. So that there will be an essay, 15 and 25 marker. Within this essay, you have to answer. Now, there will be a small extract given, by the way, just above the 2 questions. There's like a small paragraph with information, with data perhaps, or some information about the nature of the questions. And then you go for the 15 marker, which is an explanation question. And then again, you've got another 25 marker. Yes, guys, another 25 marker in this exam paper. Well, in both paper 1, paper 2. So if you think about it, this area is very essay driven, right? There's not much kind of, calculation or data explanation and things like that, as we've mentioned before. It's very essay driven. 15 marker explanation, 25 marker, again, for versus against economic argument that you have to develop. And remember, guys, you will have to choose an essay. So you will get 3 options. You will get 3 options. Now, you decide again where you can maximize marks in what type of question from the essays. One essay could favor you over the other. So you go for that one, for instance. Spend a little bit of time. My advice here would be spend a minute or so just going through the questions, and maybe even make a bullet pointed kind of argument, development of like points of what you can potentially do. And then that will give you clarity in your mind of how you can develop your answers for both the 15 and 25 marker. So this is something quite important when you choose the essay, because let's face it, guys, I mean, if you calculate here, really interestingly, there are 2 questions in this paper which equate up to 50 marks. So out of the 80 marks, 2 questions equate to 50. So 50 out of 80 marks are on 2 questions. Can you imagine? So you have to very carefully and strategically select that essay, that 25 marker that can potentially maximize your marks. So be very selective, very careful. Obviously, don't spend so long, like, especially if you struggle with time management, guys, like you want to be very concise with your decision and just go for it. Like, be confident with the one that you're selecting and just go for it. But you do get 3 choices of essays, and then you just go for the one that you selected and answer on the exam booklet that you are given. And yeah, with that, guys, that's paper 1 and paper 2 when it comes to the A-level Economics Exam. Let's have a look at paper 3. The paper 3, guys, likewise to paper 1 and 2, is 2 hours in length, and it also has 80 marks on offer as well. So in terms of like all 3 papers, it's all 80 marks each. All 3 are 80 marks each. So altogether 240 marks, and they are all 2 hours in length each as well. You'll notice with paper 3 is that there are 2 sections. There is section A and section B. Section A, interestingly, will have 30 multiple choice questions, and this is going to be a mixture of both microeconomics and macroeconomics, i.e. every kind of knowledge from microeconomics over the 2 years will be demanded at A level, and also macroeconomics, the knowledge that you've gained over the 2-year time period, you're going to be also demanded in terms of that knowledge during these 30 MCQs. Now the MCQs vary question to question. So the knowledge could be something right at the beginning of AS, for example, then it could be something right at the end of macro as your next question. So question 1 will be completely different to question 2, and then question 3 will be different to question 2, and then 3 will be different to question number 4. So it's like, mixture of questions, but it's also very demanding because you don't know necessarily what topic is going to come up, but also it would be very different to the next question. So it's quite challenging, and therefore, like, having that baseline knowledge of year 1 but also year 2 and the added knowledge of year 2 is going to be absolutely crucial, so that you don't come across any questions that like you get stuck with, or you're like, I never learned it in year 1 or year 2, or you missed it, for instance. You want to cover all bases when it comes to the multiple choice questions. So 30 marks there, and this is all compulsory. So section A is compulsory, 30 MCQs. So that's 30 out of the 80 marks. Let's have a look at section B. So section B is a really interesting area that's been added into the AQA specification. It's actually an investigation task, and it gives you 3 different scenarios. Now, these 3 scenarios are compulsory for you to answer, and the 3 scenarios are basically 3 questions: a 10 marker, a 15 marker, and a 25 marker. But to answer all of these 3 questions, you get an insert booklet, a separate booklet altogether, which I think is about 4 or 5 pages long. I think it might be 4 pages. And there are 4 extracts as well in that booklet. There will be extract A, B, C, and D. One of the extracts, very interestingly, usually it's either extract A or B. It will be statistical economics in one whole page. Sometimes it may carry over into a second page, but you literally be one full page of data and information about certain industry or certain economy, for instance, and it will be all stats basically. So you have to kind of dissect the information, get the right sort of information for that particular question that you're answering. Now, when it comes to the questions in paper 3, you have to firstly answer an evaluative 10 marker. And by the way, just to remind, 10, 20, 15 and 25 markers are all compulsory as well. So this whole paper basically is compulsory. There's no options like in paper 1 and 2. You would have the option of context 1 or context 2. Here, fully compulsory, all questions are there and you have to answer all of them. Now, the first question is an evaluative 10 marker where you have to create an argument for versus against, and then you have to also develop a conclusion which has to show evaluation. So very similar to the 25 marker, but it's condensed down, and it's not a in-depth answer as the 25 marker, but it is an evaluative 10 marker that you have to show evaluation throughout as well. The second question is the explanation question, which is a 15 marker, so very similar to papers 1 and papers 2, where you have to answer a 15-mark question. Now, interestingly, of course, you have to use the extracts here to support the 15 marker. The evaluation question, again, very similar to papers 1 and 2, whereby you have to do an evaluative economic argument for versus against when it comes to the 25 marker. So the 15 and 25 marker are not too dissimilar from what you're used to, although what I would say as part of an exam advice that I will give you is that you must utilize the extracts a lot in the 10, 15 and 25 markers. So throughout these questions, you must be demonstrating the application of the context when it comes to these 4 extracts. Now, another interesting question that a lot of students do ask me as well, will the questions or will the investigation scenarios be micro or macro? It could be either or. Like you may get, for instance, 10, 15 and 25 marker, all 3 of them purely on micro. Or you may get the 10, 15, 25 marker purely on macro. Or it could be a mixture, which has happened previously in one of the exam papers, whereby it is a mixture of answers where microeconomics is one question, but then the next question could be macroeconomics. But rest assured, guys, you will find the data and the information, relevant information from the extracts to answer your 10, 15 or 25 marker. So yeah, I don't think it should be a case that you think that it's definitely, it's going to be micro and I don't need to revise macro at all. No, it shouldn't be like that. You should be ready for either a micro or macro or even a mixture, which will not be a surprise at all that you get a mixture of questions in the 10, 15, 25 marker. One could be micro, one could be macro, and then another could be micro, for instance. So yeah, it would be a mixture throughout your exam paper. If you think about it, the 30 MCQs is a mixture, and we wouldn't be too surprised to also know that the 10, 15, 25 marker is also going to be a mixture. And so that's the information for paper 3, and that's everything for paper 1, 2 and 3. And I hope the video has helped you better understand the AQA A-level Economics exam, and I can only wish you all the very best, guys.